Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I wanted to show you this today in DAIXRP.com. That's the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, you can click the join button below any of my videos. But here's what I'm going to talk about, maybe one of the most important things I've ever talked about in there, and that is I have literally talked to the security experts at one of the major firms that you all know, that cryptocurrency trading firms, and I literally went over a safety plan. You know, you hear all the time about, you know, to prevent hackers, you know, get a hard wallet and don't give your private keys to anybody. But I'm going to tell you one of the most important ways to sleep soundly over the safety of your digital assets, and I'm going to get this one is this is the one that I've heard used by the people with a lot of money. Okay, and I'm going to go over that now. The first step is what I keep stressing. What I'm doing with Caleb and Brown. It's the first place I know of that I've been able to get institutional grade custody as a retail investor.
The most important thing when running a cryptocurrency platform of any kind is to ensure that your assets are held safely. So custody is by far the biggest primary concern for Caleb Brown. What we do is we partner with Fireblocks. Fireblocks gives us an institutional grade custody platform to look after your assets. Throughout the 8 years we've been in business, exchanges have been hacked all around the world. So what we do as a brokerage is we really restrict the counterparty risk.
What I'm going to do in the group is I'm going to give you the cherry on top. I'm going to tell you what the wealthiest people in this space do. You don't ever hear it talked about from like a safeguard, what things to do. But if you've got a significant amount of money in crypto, this is the smartest way to go about it. But the first step, go to Caleb and Brown, go to XRPwealth589.com, and it'll forward you to my page here on Caleb and Brown. Sign up for an account, get your stuff in institutional grade custody through Fireblocks with them. You're going to have your personal broker, and you're going to, most important maybe, you're going to have the liquidity to sell when you're ready to sell, because they're plugged into multiple OTC outlets so that they can source the liquidity when you are ready to get out. But again, in the group, I'm going to give you one of the most important tips that I've actually talked to by the head of security at one of these firms, and I'll even tell you who it was when I get there. Don't forget, 29 days out, XRP Las Vegas. I talked to Brad Combs yesterday. The record has been shattered for attendance at XRP Las Vegas, and it continues to be shattered. So go to xrplasvegas.com, and don't forget, Bitcoin Las Vegas is going to be 3 days. Then the next 2 days is XRP Las Vegas, xrplasvegas.com. Okay, check this out. The market is down a little bit. You know, Bitcoin's at 94, XRP's at 219-ish. Not much there. There is much here though. Smoke is on fire as usual. The value of and this is from Central Bank of Egypt, I'm assuming. Blockchain is the biggest technology since the internet. Look what it says. The digitization of monies, commodities, and assets is inevitable, and all the world's financial infrastructure must be upgraded. The value and wealth creation resulting from upgrading the world's financial infrastructure will dwarf the internet. Dwarf the internet. I've said this for years. Now, this is a very interesting clip. This is Sebastian Bay, I guess, president of Coinbase Asset Management. Listen to what he says about gold. Gold was never going anywhere, folks. They're going to revalue this thing.
But gold is different, we think. And to quote Marcel, his view on gold is that you really have to understand the pipes of how banks and how the government works to understand why, or rather, how they might revalue gold and buy Bitcoin and yet be budget neutral. So let me walk you through it very quickly. So today, because of law, the U.S. government still values gold that it holds in Fort Knox at $42 and change, right? Now, if they were to just mark that to market, so it's worth probably an incremental 900 billion to $1 trillion, right? Now, if you look in the public press on Twitter, most people suspect it will revalue it and then sell some gold to maybe go buy some Bitcoin. We don't think that that's the most likely case. We believe it's most likely that at some point, it could be this year, they will go and change it such that they will revalue gold to current market pricing. That would create a mark-to-market gain of $900 billion, right? And if you look at, I think the Senator Lummis bill was calling for buying, I think it's 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. Well, that's $100 billion, if I have the math right. So our back of the envelope is that when the revaluation occurs, that creates a $900 billion, given today's market price, mark-to-market gain, which then is money that the Treasury could then take. And then the Treasury would be able to use that money in the Sovereign Wealth Fund in a budget-neutral manner to go and buy a variety of things, we think probably including Bitcoin. And just to think about the math, $100 billion of 900 billion doesn't sound like that much. But the asset is about a $1.8 trillion asset. And if we go from no longer selling, right, which we just did, to here's a way by which we can actually take on a meaningful position, it's hard to see a situation where other governments don't feel compelled in some way to measure up.
And then you have this arms race, as it were.
I don't know if it's an arms race, but it's definitely a competitive situation.
Folks, if you haven't put it all together yet, all this drop gold, buy Bitcoin thing, that video right here to me sums up the PSYOP. Meanwhile, in Florida Senate passes amended HB 999, gold and silver as legal tender. Historic move. Senate just replaced SB 132 and HB 99 sound money bill as amended. Once signed, Florida will have the most comprehensive gold and silver legal tender legislation in the entire country. This is the closest any U.S. state has come to fully restoring sound money in the modern era. How about them apples, folks? Then there was this. These guys, look, I've said 1,000 times on this channel, words mean things. I believe that just like we know that the word conspiracy theorist was hatched out of the intelligence agencies so that they could paint all the people that were like, wait a minute, what's going on here, and questioning things, they could paint them as just a bunch of crazies with crazy ideas. I believe the same. I believe the word space race was also, remember, space race was generated by the media back during the Cold War, and we had this space race, and it was like a term that was coined back then in the media. I believe that, I keep telling you this Bitcoin thing's a PSYOP. And when I say it's a PSYOP, I'm not saying Bitcoin's price is not going to go up. I'm not saying it's not going to be a part of the financial system into the next 100 years. But what I am saying, it's not going to be a utility digital asset like XRP. I think that Bitcoin is something they needed to create some type of a hedge and maybe pay off the U.S. debt or something like that. But they know that the utility digital assets like XRP do not need the United States government to keep finding the next buyer the way they do with Bitcoin. But I believe they've now coined this term space race to accumulate Bitcoin. I believe this is also a part of their little PSYOP. But one thing I want to mention here that they say this, they position this like there was a war on Bitcoin. No, there was a war on XRP and crypto, not on Bitcoin. Remember, and I'll remind you, Chris Giancarlo passed Bitcoin futures under the first Trump administration. Then Bill Hinman gave the Ethereum free pass speech, And then Gary Gensler left Bitcoin alone. He even passed a Bitcoin ETF. There was no war, was and is not a war on Bitcoin, never was, because it's a psyop. But listen to this.
Yeah, dive a little bit deeper
This
into
is with Bo Hans.
kind of the reasons behind saying what you said. I mean, Bitcoin, of course, is unique. It's a finite asset. There's a space race amongst nations, I think, to capture the value of this. Is that part of the administration's thinking in ending the war on crypto or the war on Bitcoin, kind of opening their mind to it? Like you said, sending a transaction across borders now can take days and many fees and different clearing processes. Bitcoin, of course, kind of fixes that. But then with the supply cap, I think it adds a unique element to it. Is that something you're thinking about of, we don't want another nation to front run this. We want the United States to capture the value, or our allies. Just, is there any thought to kind of the international component here?
And if I could add to that, I think that's in regard specifically to the SBR, right? Do we want to start acquiring sooner than later so that we're not front run to the party?
Well, I think that we made it very clear in the way that we structured the executive order that we recognize Bitcoin as being unique. And we've said repeatedly that we view Bitcoin as digital gold. And a question that I get from journalists all the time is, how much do you want? And I think that's really a silly question. That's like asking any country, how much do you want of any asset with intrinsic stored value? You want as much as you can possibly accumulate. There are stipulations.
Okay, you get the picture. And then he says they want to make U.S. the crypto capital.
We want to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. We want to welcome in the golden age for digital assets, as the president said, and we feel like we're well on our way of achieving that. In that EO, the president set up this interagency working group that consists of really any of the agencies and or White House offices that touch anything related to the industry. And with this, we've been able to accomplish quite a few things. The president set up the first ever White House Crypto Summit, which was a monumental step in recognizing the industry as the legitimate players that they are in the financial space. He wanted to basically eradicate anything that undergirded Operation Choke Point 2.0. And you'll see that the SEC has moved forward with this, with the guidance that they've offered, with the lawsuits that they've dropped. We've seen the banking regulators cooperate with the guidance that they've put out over the course of the last few months. We're going to make sure that we create the most pro-crypto friendly environment that possibly exists in the world here in the United States. And our message to folks that have left is welcome home. This is the best place to innovate, and we look forward to it.
Welcome home. Then we had this. Eleanor Terrett put out the SEC's delayed making a decision on Franklin Templeton's XRP spot ETF until June 17th. And I think this guy, Clyde James, is right over the target. Hot take. If the SEC U.S. government is truly considering accepting settlement payment from Ripple in the form of XRP as opposed to cash, they sure as hell aren't going to approve spot ETFs prior, as that would quickly increase the price of XRP and diminish their future returns. So they're talking about the SEC Ripple settlement. I think it was $125 million. So if they want $125 million worth of XRP, which makes sense for payment, wouldn't it make sense to approve the ETFs right after you get that XRP? And remember, Chris Larson's meeting with the SEC on Friday. You have to wonder if Chris Larson's going to be signing off on that payment. Man, I got so much more. Let me see. Let me skip this one. I want to show you these two things, and then we'll do the other in the next video. Recent $1.5 billion Bybit hack is the largest in crypto history. As a digital asset demand grows, so does the need for top-tier protection. Join our webinar, Ripple Custody, a primer on digital asset protection. All right. And don't forget, in DAI XRP, we're going to be talking about the ultimate plan for making sure your crypto is safe until you're ready to get out. I'll show this and then we'll go into the group. Heading into my third year at Point Zero Forum, can't wait. This is Stuart Alderati going to the Point Zero Forum. We will pay attention to that. Okay, here we go. We're going to DAIXRP.com, the Patreon, or click the join button below this YouTube video. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, especially if you've got, if you've got $1,000 on the line, you're not going to do this. But if you're trying to become a millionaire off of XRP, or if you're trying to, and you want to protect all of your stuff until then, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. And you really don't see this online ever. But this is what the big boys do. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Here we go.